fact, we stay locked in judgment and criticism, anxiety and despair, even denial and addiction. It is impossible to experience joy when we are stuck this way. Acceptance is the sword that cuts through all of this resistance, allowing us to relax, to see clearly, and to respond appropriately. Wow. Yeah. So that is what acceptance can do for us. You know, there's a story, you've probably heard this one many times, it's in this book too, about the Chinese farmer whose horse ran away. And all of his neighbors gathered around and said, "Oh, this is so sad, your horse ran away." And he said, "Well, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad." And then a little while later, the horse came back with a wild stallion that it had found somewhere out there in the wilderness. And so now the farmer had two horses. And all the neighbors gathered around and said, "Oh, you are so fortunate. Look at this. You now have two horses." And he said, "Well, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad." And then his son tried to ride this stallion and fell off and broke his leg. And all the neighbors gathered around and said, "Oh, you have terrible luck. This is so bad that your son fell off the horse and broke his leg." And the farmer said, "Well, maybe this is good, maybe this is bad." And then the army came through and conscripted all the young men in the village. But the farmer's son couldn't go because his leg was broken. And so the neighbors again gathered and said, "Ah, you have good fortune." And the farmer said, "Maybe good, maybe bad." This is the way it is, that things come and happen, and sometimes we think they're good, sometimes we think they're bad, but they are what they are. And it's that acceptance of them as they are that allows us to move forward. You know, it's interesting that they say in here that the opposite of that acceptance is actually the opposite of resignation. It doesn't mean giving up on whatever it is. It means being able to remove all of our negative emotions so that we can see clearly and think clearly about what's actually happening. Another attribute of acceptance is detachment. We are detached from the outcome so that we can engage in life without being stuck on having to think it has to be a certain way. So we can engage in a lot of things to try to move forward and do what we'd like to do. But if it doesn't work out, we're just detached from what happens after that effort. But I think the most important attribute of this whole concept of acceptance is that it's the only place from which change can start. It's the only place from which change can start. I've had an experience this last couple of months that really brought this home to me. I had gotten to a point, probably somewhere a couple of weeks before Christmas, where, you know, I don't know if ever you've had this experience, but Christmas seemed like nothing but work. You know, like, oh my gosh, here's something else I have to do. And I have really, for the very first time in my life, I really did not have any sense of joy and anticipation about Christmas. Just nothing. I went through the motions, you know, did all the stuff, got everything together the way I was supposed to. Kept thinking to myself, gee, what, you know, what, something's wrong here, but I have no idea what it is and what to do about it. I also noticed that I'm engaged as a volunteer for an organization. I put in probably 20 hours a week on this organization, and I was really resenting that volunteer work, really resenting it, going in and doing it. You know, okay, now I got to go down and do, you know, it's on my computer, most of it. So I go down in my little cubby hole in the basement, you know, holed up there, and more of this stuff to do. And it was just all like, well, why am I doing this? This is just all awful. And my mind wasn't working either. I mean, I would they would come up to me in this volunteer organization. They'd say, oh, we have this problem. And I'd say, oh, and then maybe 2 or 3 days later, a little tiny inkling of an idea might come into my mind to say, I wonder what we should do about that. It was just like molasses. It was terrible. So, of course, being a person who's, a spiritual seeker, I immediately started to pull out all my tools to figure out what can I do to fix myself. And I started thinking about, doing my meditation more consistently, all the things that we do. I read books. You're going to be reading the book, those in the other group are going to be reading the book about the gifts of imperfection. There were a lot of techniques in there. One of them was, when you wake up in the morning, don't think about all the things you have to do right away and how you don't have enough time. Don't do that. Instead, think about all the ways in which you're blessed. So I started trying to do all of that, all these things. And I just got into this spiral of being more and more self-absorbed about, oh my gosh, this isn't working. This isn't working. What am I going to do? I'm just getting worse and worse. I need to, I need to meditate more. Let's see, I need to get more exercise. I mean, all this stuff was going through my mind, wasn't working. They talk in here about how being self-absorbed doesn't help at all in trying to pursue your joy. Let me just give you a quick reference here. Just a minute. Yeah. Contemplate that as long as you are too focused on your self-importance and too caught up in thinking about how you are good or bad, in this case, I was caught up in the bad part, you will experience suffering. Obsessing about getting what you want or avoiding what you don't want does not result in happiness. So, yeah, I was in this big spiral downwards. And it really hit the pits when I left the day after Christmas to go down and visit my daughter in New Orleans, which should have been a joyful thing. For those of you who don't know, I have a granddaughter who's a year old. She had her first birthday while I was down there. And 1-year-old babies are a little tricky because sometimes they're in that all I want is mommy phase. And she happened to be teething when I got there. So, of course, all she wanted was mommy. And so my self-esteem went shoot, because, of course, she didn't recognize me, didn't want everything to do with me. And so I thought, oh, shoot, I can't be of any help to these people while I'm visiting here. I can't take care of the baby because she didn't want anything to do with me. I'm just a useless, failure. I mean, you can hear all the tapes in your mind going through, oh man, I can't do anything for these. Why am I even here? I can't be of any help to them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So my daughter, bless her heart, those of you who know her, Tara is an amazing, amazing being. She took me aside one morning and she said, Mom, she put her arms around me. She said, Mom, we love you for who you are. We don't love you because of what you do for us. We're so glad you're here. And I heard all of this. And you can hear all of this. You can't flip on a dime. You can't just change like that. But it was wonderful to hear that because, we have these little fears in the background. And one of my fears is, my daughter is like in her mid-30s, a whole different world from the world that I grew up in and that what I was in, like when I was in my 30s. And I'm thinking, how am I going to fit in her life, et cetera? So anyway, it was wonderful to get all of this from her. But it didn't sink in very far. I mean, it couldn't because I was still beating myself up for not being able to do all the things I thought I needed to do, et cetera. And so I came home and I was still feeling like, okay, nothing's working. I can't think straight. My energy level is low, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then I started reading this book. And, every once in a while, something just kind of hits you between the eyes and you say, aha, that's the problem. So let me read to you what hit me between the eyes. It's so wonderful the way that Unity keeps tracking with our lives, isn't it? I mean, you come and you get the lessons you need. Okay. Stress and anxiety often come from too much expectation and too much ambition. Then when we don't fulfill that expectation or achieve that ambition, We experience frustration right from the beginning. It is a self-centered attitude. I want this, I want that. Often we are not being realistic about our own ability or about objective reality. When we have a clear picture about our own capacity, we can be realistic about our effort. Then there is a much greater chance of achieving our goals. But unrealistic effort only brings disaster. So in many cases, our stress is caused by our own expectations and our own ambition. Symptoms of chronic stress and are feelings of fragmentation and of chasing after time, of not being able to be present. What we are looking for is a settled, joyful state of being, and we need to give this state space. When I wrote those words, I started thinking to myself, you know, I had COVID a couple months ago. And ever since then, I've been feeling really tired. I've been sleeping a lot more than I did before. And one of the symptoms of long COVID is foggy brain. So maybe what I have been doing all this time is beating myself up for not being able to function realistically at the level that I used to, because I've been sick with long COVID. Wow, wow. Just that thought really turned everything over in my mind. And it said, my mind said to me, and my whole being said to me, hey, you need to be compassionate with yourself. What is this beating yourself up business? You have reasons why you can't do all these things you used to be able to do. And there's the compassion, there's the ease, you need to just lower your expectations and say, oh yeah, people get COVID, it takes a long time to recover. And then I started thinking about my meditation. And I realized I had been treating myself like a machine. 127, let me read you this. Our whole society has a materialistic culture, the Dalai Lama said. In the materialistic way of life, there's no concept of friendship, no concept of love, just work. 24 hours a day, like a machine. So in modern society, we eventually also become part of that large moving machine. I'd been meditating, all right, but I'd been meditating solely for the purpose of getting myself together again so I could get out there and get my work done. Instrumental, treating myself like, you know, this object that was out of order. I got to get it fixed so I can get out there and keep doing the things I'm supposed to be doing. I had totally lost track of the fact that I am a worthy being for just being, even though my daughter tried to tell me that. It didn't sink in. And so I thought, okay, I need to stop treating myself like a tool in my life to get done what I need to get done. Start treating myself like a human being. That quote said something about allowing time to just be in this state of beingness, to give space for being in a settled, joyful state. So I changed my meditation. I had been using part of my meditation to go through my entire body and make sure it was all working the way it was supposed to be working. And I thought, wait a minute. I need to take time in my meditation to just appreciate that I am a precious being. Just me, just here, just what I am right now. And let that sink in. And not just keep thinking about how can I fix this, fix that, get back out there and do more. No, just appreciate that I am. And that's what I started to meditate on, by the way, is just I am. Not I am something, just I am, just the I am of me. That is that state that allows me to get in touch with my inner joy. And you know, the amazing thing about it is that this all happened during the course of about 24 or 48 hours. All of a sudden, all these problems I was having with my volunteer organization, answers were coming to me just like that. I just spent this last week doing a whole lot of work with them, and every single hour that I was working was a complete joy, complete and utterly fantastically wonderful and enjoyable. I thought, wow, you know, this is what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be giving from our joy. And I had gotten so far removed from that. So acceptance of the reality of where we are and what is happening is a critical component of being able to maintain our joy. But you know, it's not the only thing. This book talks about acceptance of reality out there, but there's also that critical acceptance of our divine selves within. So I like to think of acceptance as being in two directions. There's the acceptance that they're talking about, based in the reality and not getting caught up in attachment and all of that. But then there's the inward acceptance of our divineness. We are divine. And spiritual joy is our divine right. Charles Fillmore said, "Drink heavily of the joy of life." Wow, yeah, that's what we need to be doing. And it sounds, I don't know about you, but it sounds kind of selfish to do that, but it isn't at all. It's what we need to be doing. I have a friend who started an organization in Helena called Splashes of Joy. And she said, you know, when we try to help people through Splashes of Joy, we're very clear with our volunteers. We want you giving from your excess, not from the core of what you need for yourself, but from your excess. It's back to that oxygen mask thing on the airplane. You know, you can't really be of any help to anybody else if you're not getting the air that you need. And the same thing is true of joy. We need to be able to be joy-filled before we can give joyously to others. So we are opening up in sweet surrender to the wisdom of our hearts. And that wisdom is that we are, by nature, joyous, loving beings. And that we don't have to do anything to have that. We just are that. Our greatest joy comes from giving to others, when that giving comes from the overflow of our own inner joy. Final story. As all of you may remember or not, as the case may be, I have been wearing a mask all the way up until last Sunday, all the time. And last Sunday, I decided I wasn't going to do that anymore. I was sitting right where Judy is. And all of the other Sundays that I have been sitting where Judy is right now, running the Zoom, I have kept my focus on the Zoom screen during the whole entire service. You know, what's the point of being here? I still don't see the speaker because I'm looking at the Zoom screen. Why am I doing that? I'm doing that because I am task-oriented. I'm going to do the very best job I can on running that Zoom, and I'm not going to let it get away from me, and I'm going to make sure everybody gets you know. So last Sunday, I said to myself, okay, no, not this Sunday. I'm going to treat myself. I'm actually going to let my eyes go up from the Zoom screen. I'm actually going to watch the speaker. Hey, you know, what a wonderful world it is when you can actually connect with a person. And so I just let myself connect without my mask on for the first time. Just, you know, looking at Dan Comstock as he was giving his talk and just radiating like I radiate. You know, the first time I've been radiating here for a long time. After we were all finished and everybody got done and Dan was up here and I came up to do something, he came over to me and he said to me, you know, I just want you to know how much I appreciate all of your presence right there beaming back at me because, I'm I'm not one of this people of this congregation. I come in from the outside, and your being present and being so beaming really helped me feel at home. And I thought, yeah, that's what it's all about. It's all about just being there, just beaming that wonderful sense of acceptance and love and joy that we have inside of ourselves. And when we do that, we get fed. I mean, I felt so wonderful last Sunday. And that was even before he said that. I felt wonderful. I felt even more wonderful afterwards because I said, yeah, this is what it is. It's just that simple act of giving from our abundance and just being there with each other. We are all one of the other truths out of this book. So I just want to end on page 63 with a little comment about the role of joy and what we can do. The more we turn toward others, the more joy we experience. And the more joy we experience, the more joy we can bring to others. The goal is not just to create joy for ourselves, but as the Archbishop poetically phrased it, to be a reservoir of joy, an oasis of peace, a pool of serenity that can ripple out to all those around you. And as we will see, joy is in fact quite contagious, as is love, compassion, and generosity. So being more joyful is not just about having more fun. We're talking about a more emphatic, more empowered, even more spiritual state of mind that is totally engaged with the world. When the Archbishop and I were working on creating a training course for peace ambassadors and activists who go into conflict regions, he explained how peace must come from within. We cannot bring peace if we do not have inner peace. Similarly, we cannot hope to make the world a better, happier place if we do not also aspire for the joy in our own lives. So let's do a meditation. I invite you to settle in, take a couple deep breaths. Let yourself just let go for a few moments of your physicalness of this room and just allow yourself to turn within, to go to that quiet place inside, that quiet place within, that place where we can connect with our true nature, where we connect with the divine within. We connect with that infinite presence of light, love, and joy that is within us. Imagine this place within expanding to fill every part of you. Creating a vast reservoir of joy that fills every part of you. Imagine this reservoir of joy is also an oasis of peace, filling every part of you. Imagine that oasis of peace transforming to a pool of serenity. That fills every part of you. And imagine that reservoir and pool of joy and serenity and peace, rippling out to all those around you. For you are a divine being of light and love, peace, serenity, and joy. This is your birthright. And you have within you all that you need to be joyful, to claim your divine identity, to allow this infinite beingness to fill every part of you. And so it is. We are divine. We are joy. We are peace. We are serenity. We are infinite beings, just as we are. Thank you, Spirit. Amen. So we can come back now and go ahead with our prayer of protection. Our new prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds us. We are light. The love of God enfolds us. We are love. The power of God protects us. We are power. Presence of God watches over us. We are presence. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. We are one. All right, let's stand and sing the peace song.